He's confessing up here because the first service, he said something about even if they're ugly, still tell them they look good. And I called him out because I said, we don't lie. So anyway, so that's what we're chatting about up here.
If you look ugly, I ain't going to tell you you're ugly. I'll just tell you, I'm going to tell a story, and you look okay today. If I be doing a video, if my video ain't good, so, and if y'all know Froggy Fresh, if y'all know Froggy Fresh, you need to check out Froggy Fresh. There's about 5 of you seen Froggy Fresh. So anyway, we're glad that you're here today. I hope you're as excited as the other 5 or 6 that are here, that you'll join them. And if it's your first time, we're really glad that you're here. And the seat back in front of you is a connection card that looks just like this. And if you would take a moment between now and the end of the service today, complete as much information as you feel comfortable completing. At the end of the service, stop by at the back. It looks like Mr. Jimmy is back there, and you can see him in his blaze orange, and come right to him. Hunter Orange, you got to have that this time of year. And stop by and see him. He's got a gift for you. And if you'll give us your address, we're not going to hassle you. We have a no-hassle guarantee here at The Journey. But we do have another little gift for you. If you'll give that to us, we'll send that to you as well. If you've got a prayer concern, a next step that you need to take or feel like you need to take, we've got several next steps coming up in the very near future. Decision that you make, let us know that. Communicate with us on this connection card. But thank you again for being here today. God bless you.
What do you want to be when you grow up?
I want to be. Let me think about that. What?
I want to be a teacher when I grow up.
Elementary teacher. I like little kids.
A babysitter.
A pastor.
Dolphin trainer.
A dental that eats bugs. A haircutter.
A person who helps in charities.
I'm a cashier at Walmart. An author. Chapter books about mythical creatures and animals and things. I want to be a lawyer. Lawyer. Pilot. Pilot. And a dad. A pilot racer dad. Scientist. Paleontologist. Mines for dinosaur bones and studies them. YouTuber. Movie star.
A famous actor.
Actor. On stage.
On TV.
On Disney Channel. Or commercials. I gotta be a model.
I'll work it.
If I want a model, I'll just be a policeman. Police officer. A cop. I want to car chases. Catch bad guys. A superhero. Batman. Spider-Man.
I would like to go into the U.S. Army because my grandma, she loved the Army, but she never went into the service.
I want to be the third African-American gymnast. Gymnastic coach. I want to be a professional dancer.
Dance teacher.
Ballerina. Professional soccer player. I have a shirt on right now that's for Barcelona. Soccer player. Basketball player. Basketball, football, or soccer player. Or baseball. I can never choose. I do not know.
I'm still working on that.
Maybe when I grow up, I'll pick. I already have a whole plan. Serve the Air Force for 20 years. Become a businessman. Make my own company for cars. I want to be a Pokemon trainer. I want to work at Target. I want a cake. I want to be a pop star. Rock star. Singer.
I want to be a cook, but I don't really know how to actually cook.
I want to be an artist. Painter. I want to be an artist that goes around painting walls. An artist and a video game maker. Video game designer. Video gamer. I want to be a filmmaker. Whatever my dad is.
Do you know what your dad is?
I'm not sure. I would be a doctor. Doctor. A mermaid. A mermaid doctor. Heart surgeon. Neurosurgeon.
Cardiologist.
Gynecologist. Pediatrician, the kid's doctor. Pediatrician.
And why do you want to do that?
I want to be a doctor and then I can wear rainbow sweatpants.
I really want to be a nurse. Everyone says you have to be very good at science and math. I'm not really, but I still want to be one.
I want to be a pet doctor because I like helping animals. Pet vet. Veterinarian. Zoologist. Princess Fairy Zookeeper.
How much do you think they get paid?
$29.
Gotta love the children, right? I used to teach first grade, so I love kids. I thought that was a funny introduction. But what if I told you guys this morning that I had some very important information that would help you become the person that you want to become? You know, just like these children that we just saw, they had hopes and dreams of who they want to become. You can be the person that you desire to be. You can become the person that God has intended for you. You see, you hear us say this all the time. We're always saying we're on a journey. Everyone is on a journey, and we're talking about our spiritual walk with Christ, but we're all on a journey, and we're all at different spots, right? We talk about that, and we're always moving forward. But let me ask you another layer to that today. Let me ask you a question. What is your destination? So we're all on a journey, and what is your destination? Which direction are you headed? In other words, are there some things that you need to start in order to get there, or some things that you need to stop to get to that destination? Where are you headed? Because our habits matter. What we do, whether it be good or bad, what we do consistently matters, and they're often pointing us in a direction that we're headed. Sometimes we're not even aware of it. But today, guys, we are in our final lesson, our final sermon on our series called Frozen. And we've had some fun. You can see Elsa and Anna and Olaf. We had some fun. We took some pictures and things like that. But bottom line is, what we've learned that there's things in our life that hold us back. There's things in our past. There's that the devil wants to make us think it defines us, but it doesn't. We've learning to let that stuff go, to let it go, and press into who God wants us to be. Press into how we can become that person. We've looked at a book called Atomic Habits, and it's written by a fellow named James Clear. And one of the things that he reminded us of is that most people, good or bad, most people have very similar goals in life. So let's think about that. Most people have the same goals. You would say, but every year do your resolutions, but think about it. They all, some form or fashion, they want to be happy, they want to be healthy, they want to be financially secure, right? Happy, healthy, financially secure. They want to have good relationships, whether it's with their spouse or with a parent or a loved one or a coworker. And of course, if you're a Christian, you desire to have a closer relationship with Jesus, right? So just recently, they had the Golden Globe Awards. I don't know if any of you follow that. I don't really follow it. But Brad Pitt won an award this year, Best Supporting Actor, I believe. But he was being interviewed like the day after or the week after or sometime like that. And what caught my attention in the interview was what they were asking him and his response. I didn't catch the whole interview, so I don't know exactly what happened, but this is what I heard. Something to the extent of, I want to be happy, I want to be healthy, I want to be financially secure. Maybe they were asking him, now that you've won the award, what do you want to go from here? So bottom line, we all have the same basic goals. Something negative. No, we don't intentionally go in the wrong direction. But do you know what a fun fact is? It's not so fun. Is that the vast majority of people ruin their lives one small decision, one small step, one bad habit, one day at a time. They're consistently doing this one thing or several things that are leading them in the wrong direction, and they wake up one day and they're in a bad way. They wake up in a place where they don't want to be. And hear my heart this morning, I'm not talking about those tragic accidents that happen in a split second and your life changes forever. That's terrible. That's not what I'm talking about this morning. But what I am talking about are our habits. I'm talking about the things that we consistently do on a daily basis. They matter in our lives. So you think about it. Let's take finances, for example. We would not go to sleep tonight and we're financially secure and then wake up tomorrow morning and we're bankrupt. Right? It happens over a series of unwise choices. Relationships the same way. You make unwise choices in there, and one day you wake up and you're in a bad way. So what we do on a consistent basis, there's our word, consistent, whether it be good or bad, it matters, and it indicates which direction we're going. But guys, we are not, our society's like that, but we're not the first generation to experience this. You think about it. People in the Bible did this as well. What I want us to do, I want us to start out looking at Judges 16:1. If you have your Bible, Judges is a book in the Old Testament. If not, she'll put it on the screen. But while you're getting there, let me tell you just a little bit about this passage. We're going to read just a small amount. But this is the story, the beginning of Samson. And if you don't know about Samson, let me just tell you a little bit about him. He was an Israelite. He was one of God's people, and he was known. He was famous for his extraordinary strength. And he was this warrior, a fighter. So there's stories of him killing a lion in the Bible with his bare hands, like that kind of strength. There's another one like where he massacred a whole Philistine army with just the jawbone of a donkey. And I don't know about you guys if you've ever seen like the series, the Ten Commandments or something like that, a movie. And I remember seeing Samson, and he was a strong man, and he was on this building. It kind of reminded me of like these big buildings in Washington, D.C. with these big columns. And he was there, and he just did this, and the buildings crashed. Like he was known for his strength. And I was trying to compare him today, and I said, the only thing I can think of is the Incredible Hulk. In our mind, he would put the Incredible Hulk to shame. But this is the deal. This is the deal with Samson. He was given this strength to defeat his enemies, but his only thing is he had the strength as long as he obeyed, and that was not to cut his hair, not to shave his head, or have alcohol. And so, unfortunately, Samson's power, his strength, was stripped away when he made a very unwise choice with a lady, with his lover friend, Delilah. He told her the secret, and when he was asleep one day, she cut his hair. So as you can tell, he had some issues selecting the right women, right? But anyways, back to this story. Let's look at Judges 16:1. And it says, one day. We could just stop right there. Say this word with me, those two words. Say them with me. One day. One day, Samson went to Gaza, where he saw a prostitute. He went in to spend the night with her. I'm just sorry, I had this image. You mean you're going to talk about prostitutes at church? It's in the Bible, guys. It's in the Bible. But anyways, he went to Gaza where he saw a prostitute. He went in to spend the night with her. So let's talk just a minute about this place, this Gaza place. Gaza, if you know the geography, and I didn't, I had to study it, but Gaza is located about 25 miles from his hometown of Zorah. About 25 miles. So that would be as if you're at Spivey's Corner here and you're headed towards Fayetteville on 13, right? The edge of 13. 25 miles. But this is the deal. It was enemy territory. 25 miles away was a Philistine country. It was enemy territory. And guess who was public enemy number one? Samson, the strong man, right? So for Samson to head towards Gaza to see this prostitute lady, it was putting his life in danger, okay? And if you think about it, I know that was supposed to be funny. So anyways, if you think about it, guys, he didn't have any Ubers. He didn't have a bus. He didn't have, wheels type thing to get there really quick. He, as the custom of that day, he was most likely walking. So he walked for 25 miles into enemy territory to see somebody he should not have seen. All right, so let's talk about that. 25 miles. If you Google about how many steps does it take to go a mile, it's going to tell you about 2,000, maybe 2,500 depending on your gait. So you do the math. He walked about, probably took him close to a whole day, but he walked over 50,000 steps to get to enemy territory. 50,000. I don't know if y'all have ever done 50,000. I mean, I'm doing good if I get my 5,000 to 10,000 a day. But 50,000 steps in the wrong direction. 50,000 opportunities that he could have had to realize, oh my goodness, I'm going into enemy territory. I'm going with a woman. Women are my weakness. I probably shouldn't go this way. No, he didn't. He just kept going, right? So pretty much, Samson didn't just ruin his life in one step or just in one day. It was a series, okay? It was a series of a downward spiral. And that's how we are. Many times in our lives, we don't just wreck our lives with one decision. Or when sometimes we talked about it earlier, those tragedies do happen. But for the most part, it's the same thing. We do the same thing consistently day after day, headed in the wrong direction, and we realize we're where we don't want to be. And that's why we have been talking about habits. So let's go back to the very beginning. We saw the children, what they wanted to be when they grow up. But in this series, we've been asking you the question, who do you want to become? What kind of person do you want to become? In other words, what do you need to do to become that person? Or what do you need to stop to change direction so you can head there? A couple of weeks ago, we talked about which new thing do you need to add. And today we're going to talk about, in order to become that person, what's one thing you need to do to stop? What's one habit you need to break? So I want you to think about that. Maybe it's a habit that is unhealthy. Maybe it's a habit that's unhelpful. Maybe even ungodly. And it's taking you in a direction that you don't want to go. And I like how James, in the New Testament, James says this, and he's actually pretty blunt about it. So, you realize where he's coming from here. But James 1:21, and it says this, "Therefore, get rid of all moral filth and the evil that is so prevalent, and humbly accept the word planted in you, which can save you." How much moral filth are we supposed to get rid of, according to James? All of it. Now, I don't know about you guys, and everybody's on different places on their journey, their spiritual journey, but that whole idea of becoming perfect is somewhat overwhelming, right? We all have issues, and that is our goal, is to become like Jesus. That's our goal as we learn and we grow, to get rid of the things that are hindering us. But the thought of getting rid of everything can be overwhelming. Makes you feel like you got to be perfect. But let me encourage you this morning. Let me encourage you. One of my favorite quotes is this: "The journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step." It's good stuff. Listen to it. The journey of 1,000 miles, doesn't matter how far you're going, how far away your goal is, it's got to start with that first step. You got to get started. And when I was in college, and the old saying goes, that was many moon ago, but when I was at college, when I was a young person, I had a tendency to have very, very high expectations of myself. That whole idea of, in school, an A- or a B wasn't good enough. It had to be an A. It had to be a good, strong A. And I'm just using this as an example, but I did this to myself, not because anybody around me. It was like I wanted to give my very best, and some of you can relate to what I'm talking about, but you know the stress that you put yourself under. And thank goodness the Lord has kind of delivered me from that. You plant a church, and you'll understand that things are not perfect. But anyways, we're in a good place. But I can remember, and my mom is here this morning, Nana's over there, but I remember her, I probably was venting to her, and I was probably saying, "But Mom, I've got this exam and this paper due and blah, 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 blah," and I was just, letting her have it. And I can remember her saying to me, "Terry, how do you eat an elephant?" And I was kind of like, what has that got to do with the price of eggs in China, right? Like, I don't know, Mom, how do you eat an elephant? And she told me, one bite at a time. I heard somebody out there, somebody else has heard that before. One bite at a time. How do I go that distance of 1,000 miles? One step at a time. You got to take one step at a time. You just got to get started. So when we think about that idea and we apply it to where we are, how do we get rid of all the stuff that's our past, our weaknesses, our issues? How do we get rid of it? James says to get rid of everything that's holding us back. We got to do it one time, one step at a time, right? Does that make sense to you guys? So can God do this miraculously? Can he just wake up one morning and I'm all fixed? Well, he could. God could, because the Word tells us that nothing is impossible with Him. And I'll use my parents. Another example, my dad, I hear this story. I don't remember it as a small child, but I remember him telling the story, and there's a whole details I don't have time to go into. But I was told he took a pack of cigarettes, and he went down to the altar, and he laid them on the altar and gave them to God. He said never to pick up another one ever. Never had a desire to do it again. That's a miracle. Is God able to do miracles? Absolutely, He is. Does it happen often like that? No, because He wants to teach us things on our journey. But anyways, what is one habit that you need to get rid of? I want you to think about it. I want you to write it down. On your notes, there may not be a line on there or not, but I want you to write down one thing in your life, just one, just pick one, that you want to work on. And I want you to write it down. We have to define it. And so, listen to this statement. You can't defeat what you can't define. I told the morning service, that's tweetable. Is that a word, tweetable? You can't defeat what you can't define. So in other words, you can't work on getting rid of something or making something better if you don't know what it is. You got to admit it. You got to define it. You got to label it. So let's kind of unpack that for a few minutes, all right? Maybe it's a bad attitude. Maybe you have a terrible attitude. Maybe you have a nasty mouth, like you curse like a sailor, you know that's wrong. Maybe you have a complaining heart and nobody can please you. Maybe it's a physical issue, like you eat too much or too less. Or, maybe it's like me and you love sweets. You have a sweet tooth and you eat too much sugar, or you don't eat the right foods. That hurts when we start talking about stuff that's personal, doesn't it? What about if it's too much social media? Like you find yourself on Facebook or Instagram too much, that you're ignoring your other responsibilities. Maybe you are addicted to nicotine, to a drug, pain pills. Maybe you're doing something in your relationship with your boyfriend and girlfriend that's only reserved for married couples. Students, maybe you're cheating on tests and you just haven't got caught yet. You're cheating. Maybe you're going to parties with friends that you shouldn't be. Maybe it's a financial issue. Maybe you're an Amazon junkie and it's click, 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 and I'm buying and spending bill money on that. I don't know. Maybe you have a terrible anger problem. I don't know. We all have something, right? We all have something in our life that we need to work on. I want you to write down one thing. Write it down on your piece of paper. I want you to define it. And this is what I call the what. This is what we're doing today. We're going to figure out what it is, and we're going to work on it. And then the next thing I want you to do, I want you to chase it down. Chase it down. What does that mean, to chase it down? So that's an idea by Lisa Turkis. And what that means, she's a Bible study writer, a speaker. We use her a lot in our 421 small group. But basically the idea is, she says that every decision we make, every goal, that type thing, don't just react. Like, chase it down. Figure out, if I do this, this is going to happen. So whatever your thing is that you define, chase it down a decade from now or a year from now. If I do the same thing every day consistently, like I have been doing, what is my life going to look like? And is this the person that I want to become, right? So let's use a few examples. I'll just use myself. I'll use our family. If we continue to eat fast food every day because we work here to 2 o'clock and then we don't have time to go home and get a sandwich, and we go to town and we get fast food, and then it's 10 o'clock at night before you eat supper, and blah, 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 blah. What is my life going to look like in 10 years, health-wise? Are we going to be what we want to be? Are we going to be in a position to carry out God's plan if we've not done this? If we chase it down. What about the Amazon example? What about if you are like an Amazon junkie? And I'm only doing this because somebody told me recently they were addicted to Amazon. So I thought, well, that's a great excuse for what I'm talking about. Let's chase that idea down. If I continue to do that, I continue spending money that I don't have, what is that going to look like? What is my bank account going to look like when I can't pay my bills? How I'm putting my family in stress, and what is my house going to look like when it's full of junk of stuff I don't need, right? Chase it down. Define it. Chase it down. Maybe let's use the example of nicotine. So if I am addicted to cigarettes or alcohol or whatever abuse it is, substance it is, if I continue to do it because I'm enjoying it right now, what does it look like? What will my life look like in a decade from now, health-wise? What will it do to me? What is that doing to my lungs? Is that the person that I want to become? Do I want to be that person? We got to decide. We got to decide, do we need to stop this? Do we need to stop doing this and stop going in this direction? Lisa Turkis says this, the habits you have today will shape who you become tomorrow. The habits you have today are going to shape who you are tomorrow. So basically, the habit that you've identified, the area that you've identified, is it taking you closer to that goal of who you want to become, or is that taking you farther away from that person? You see, our decisions, they're not just isolated choices. Our decisions point our lives in a certain direction and that we're headed, whether we realize it or not. So the bottom line, she says, is this: show me a decision, and I'll show you the direction. Show me the decision, and I'll show you direction. Where are you headed? What habit this morning is the Holy Spirit kind of nudging you that you need to work on, and I need you to chase it down. Chase it down and see what's the thing that I do on a consistent basis that I know is not taking me in the direction that God wants me to go in, or where I really want to be. And if you find yourself in that spot and you realize, wow, I hadn't thought about that. I hadn't thought about fast forwarding my life 10 years to know that what I do today matters what my life is going to be like in a decade. But if you find yourself in that situation, Solomon in the Bible, y'all remember Solomon? He wrote the book of Proverbs, wonderful book of wisdom. But he says this, do not be a fool. That's pretty harsh. He said, do not be a fool. Proverbs 27:12 says this, the wise see danger ahead and avoid it, but fools keep going and they get into trouble. What does that mean? The wise, those who are thinking about the future, they're chasing down their decisions, they're chasing down their habits, and they realize there's danger up there. You know, if Samson had done this, he would have saved himself a lot of issues, right? If we will chase down our decision, if we see what we're doing consistently, and we see danger up ahead, we see something that we don't want to be in a few years, we need to avoid it. We need to stop it. Guys, don't let this happen to you. Don't find yourself in a place where whatever this habit is that the Holy Spirit kind of nudged to you, and you find yourself doing it over and over again. Don't do this to yourself. God has better plans for you, right? Who do you want to become, and what's one thing that you need to break or stop to become that person? But can I tell you guys, that's a lot easier said than done. That is a lot easier. I should have had a lot of amens there. That is harder to do this. It's harder to break a habit. And you say, why is this? Especially if it's something that you really enjoy, right? Like, I'm just not going to lie. I love eating me some Lindors and some Reese cups. I'm just saying that's good stuff. And hear my heart. I'm not saying, I'm chasing it down, brother. I'm chasing it. I'm not saying I can't ever have that. I'm just saying that's an area of life I need to guard against, my health, because God has spoken to me about that, right? But anyways, why is it hard? It's hard because we want immediate results. You know, it's hard because I want to stop my habit today and tomorrow be completely whole and be completely fixed. Let me just give you an example. So I've been trying. I really have. God knows my heart. I've been trying. And I exercised some this week. And I feel like I ate better. We've been doing our fast, and so I've been doing better with my eating. And last night I did really good. My family, they had tacos with Dorito shells, and they smelled so good, homemade tacos. And I didn't eat them. Aren't you proud of me? But I didn't eat them. I made myself boiled chicken soup with carrots and celery. Like, I peeled them all, I cleaned them. I was feeling so good about myself. Like, I feel like I was making good choices, right? And I was making good choices. But I stepped on the scale this morning, and I wanted to have at least lost 10 pounds this week. I had gained 2 pounds. Gained 2 pounds. You see, that's why it's hard, is because we try to stop it, and we want instant results, right? And it doesn't happen like that. You have to keep on, keeping on until you see those results. But this morning, I just want to go over a couple of things. It is hard to do this. It's much easier said than done. But I want to go over a couple of very practical things that you and I can do to defeat this. So we have defined what our issue is, right? We have defined it. We have learned to chase it down to find out why we need to defeat it. We've defined it, we've chased it down, and now we've got to defeat it. And a couple of things you do, very simple, is number one, you have to make it difficult to do. You have to make it hard to do. So, I don't know, raise your hand if you're a snoozer. Is anybody in here like to hit the snooze? Look at all these hands. I don't get it. But anyways, I'm using this as an example. If my friend is listening online, I love you good anyways. But we had this conversation, and she said, you know, every day I set my alarm clock for 45 minutes early. And what I do, like, it goes off every 7 minutes, and I'll just reach over there and hit it. And then I get 7 more minutes of sleep, and then I hit it again. And she said, I do this for 45 minutes because I know at 6:30 I have to get out of bed. Well, that makes absolutely no sense to me. Why don't you just not do that and just get the 45 minutes of sleep anyways? But anyways, if you are a snoozer, what you need to do, make it hard, make it difficult. Take that device, whether you use your phone or whatever, or your alarm clock, if you old-timey alarm clock, unplug it by your bed, plug it in another room, put it in the bathroom, put it in the den or something to make it so that you have to get out of your warm, cozy bed to get up and cut that alarm clock off. Make it difficult to do. I'm hearing some rumbling in here. I'm thinking there's some people saying, I ain't going to do that. I ain't going to do that. But what about me? What about our family and our goodies? We do love us some chocolate, right? So what have we got to do, Schaefer family? We need to not bring the chocolate home, right? We don't need to have it in our cupboards so that every time I'm tempted, I go get it. I need to make it difficult. We need to make it so that we have to literally get dressed, put our shoes on, find our keys and phone, which could be a process for me. But anyways, find my keys, drive to Dunn, and get a treat. It's okay to have a treat, but I don't need to have it all the time, right? I need to make it difficult to be able to do. If your area that you wrote down that you want to work on is social media, maybe you just find yourself every second of the day on Facebook or Instagram or something like that, and you say, I'm just wasting too much time. I read that and I heard that in a podcast recently, and he's, on the Apple phone, I know at least you can go down there and see how many hours you spent on the phone. And he said, I realized how many hours I was on the phone, and I was like, this is ridiculous. I got to do something about that. But so if this is your issue, let's just say you got to make it hard. You got to make it difficult. You need to delete the app from your phone, just completely delete it so you can't just click it, so that you have to be able to maybe go to Safari or Google or whatever, type in Facebook, type in your login information, make it difficult to do. Daggone, you might even give it to a friend or a spouse and say, change my information so that I have to find out each time what my password is, right? Make it difficult to do. Find out what define it, and then make it difficult to do. If it's a relationship situation and you find yourself tempted to do things that only married couples should do, then don't be alone with that person. Don't go down that route. Take those 50,000 steps that Samson did in the wrong direction. Just avoid it. Just don't go there. So define it, chase it down, and then to get rid of it, I got to make it difficult. One other thing, what else can I do? I can remove the trigger. I can remove the triggers that cause me to want to do this. Now, what in the world does that mean? Remove the triggers. In other words, many times when we're in a certain location or it's a certain time of day, we are tempted to do this. Can I tell you, at 2 o'clock when we've been working here all day and we are hungry, then it's not go home and cook a gourmet meal that I want to do. I want something fast, right? So I got to remove that trigger. I got to remove the thing that's causing us to get there. Maybe it's a mood. I know there's different studies have shown that there's several triggers that cause us to do these type things. It could be a certain place, a location, a time. Maybe it's a certain time of day. Maybe it's a certain mood that you get in, or a moment. I don't know. But there's certain times, certain places, certain moods, certain people even that make us weak. It makes us more likely, it makes us more vulnerable to make those choices. So how about this? Who knows Superman? I'm not a real big Superman person. I don't even know if I've watched the full movie. I remember the old comic books, but I'm showing my age. But anyway, Superman knew his weakness, right? What was his weakness? Kryptonite. Kryptonite. He knew that kryptonite is what made him weak. I mean, doesn't everybody know that it disrupts his solar panel like energy absorption, and without energy from the sun, he weakens and eventually dies of lifelong exposure? Did everybody know that? I'm kind of joking, but bottom line is Superman knew what the trigger was. He knew his weakness, and he tried to avoid it, right? So you make it difficult, you try to avoid it. Solomon, back to wise Solomon in the book of Proverbs, he says this in Proverbs 4:14. He says, "Do not set foot on the path of the wicked or walk in the way of evildoers." In other words, he's telling us, run. Don't even go down that path. Don't even take that route. Change it up. Do something different. If you're headed in the wrong direction, don't even go there. Turn around and run the other way. Maybe think of run, Forrest, run. But anyways, know what your weakness is. You've defined it. You realize this is something, you've chased it down. You realize this is something that you need to change, and now we're trying to defeat it. We're trying to get rid of it, right? If your weakness is pornography, let's just get real here, right? It's big out there. If your weakness is pornography and you found out that your trigger point is it's when you're late at night, you're tired, you worked all day, it's late at night, everybody else is asleep, and you're by yourself, and you find yourself watching something that you shouldn't be. What do you need to do? Make it difficult and get rid of it. In other words, don't stay in there by yourself. Go to sleep when everybody else does. Remove the trigger. Maybe another one is maybe you get really angry or irritable. Maybe you're ill when you get really hangry. Has anybody in here ever been hangry? That's not hungry. That's just hungry and angry together makes hangry. So I like that our children tell us all the time, you always use us as examples. But that's okay. It's because we love you. But our oldest son, Josh, he's 27. He and his wife, Morgan, live in Sponsboro. But we laugh at him. He's a big boy. He works out. He's a coach, a teacher. But he loves to eat. He loves to eat. And if he doesn't eat often, he gets what we call hangry at the Schaefer house. I mean, it's like he is eating all the time. You used to, I can remember even in high school, you would not even have the dishes cleaned up from supper, and he'd be in the snack cabinet. I'm like, really? But his whole attitude changes. So, we went on a family trip a few years ago to Florida, and they were with us, and every 2 hours the Schaefers had to stop. And it wasn't to get a pack of nabs and a Coke. It was to get a meal. Because Josh was hangry, and he had to have some food. So anyways, whatever it is that causes you to get this, you got to remove that trigger. There's one we haven't talked about, and this one's a little bit trickier. This one's a little bit harder because it can be hard to avoid certain people. So sometimes there's certain people in our life that when we get around, it's a trigger to do things that we shouldn't do or to do things that are pointing us in the wrong direction. Certain people can be triggers. In fact, studies show that the closer we are to somebody, the closer a relationship we have to somebody, the more likely we are to have the same habits as them. Think about that. The closer your circle of friends are, the more likely you are to have their same habits, good or bad. They could be great habits, they could be bad habits. You're more likely to have those same habits. And long before we had all these studies and statistics, we have wise old Solomon again, right? Wise old Solomon in Proverbs 13:20. And he said this, if you walk with the wise, you become wise. But a companion of fools suffers harm. Certain people can be negative triggers in your life. So think about this. Which one of these situations would be easier for me? If the person that I want to become is a godly woman, a godly mother and wife, and you know, have all this ideas of who I want to become, which is easiest for me? Is it easiest for me to have 3 close women in my life who are Christian ladies? They value church. They read the Bible. They spend time in the Word, prayer. They have successful families, great jobs. They come to church regularly. Like they got it going on. Which would be easier, that situation? Or would it be easier for me to reach my goals if my 3 closest people in my life were not Christians? They didn't even know God. They didn't have a relationship with Him. They didn't have a job. They weren't successful. They just stayed home and did video games or watched HGTV all day. Like, you see what I'm saying? Which is easier? Obviously, it would be much easier for me when my circle of friends have the same goal. They're going in the same direction as I am. Because bottom line is, you become who you hang out with. Think about it. You become who you hang out with. It's almost impossible to live the life that you desire when you hang around people who have a different desire. And some of you might say, but Jesus hung out with sinners, and you're exactly right. He sure did, and we're supposed to do the same. He taught them. He tried to pour into their lives. He tried to teach them what a life with Him meant. But can I tell you, all those people were not His closest friends. His closest friends were the 12 disciples. They were the ones closest to Him. And even in the 12, He had an inner circle of 3 that He was really close with. Paul says this in 1 Corinthians 15:33. Kid yourself not. Do not be misled. Bad company corrupts good character. Bad company corrects good character. So let's think about this. I tried to make this as simple as possible. I tried to do what? What is it that you need to do? What is it that you need to do? You need to define at least one thing. Just pick one thing. Just one thing. Define it. Label it. And why do I need to do it? I need to chase it down. Why? Because I need to see where this is taking me. I need to see what my life is going to become if I continue doing this. I need to chase it down. And then I tried to make something simple, very practical. How can I break this habit? What can I do to change my life around? Make it difficult to do, remove the triggers. 3 things, guys. Define it, chase it down, and defeat it. If you don't remember anything else, define it, chase it down, and defeat it. You know, we've just finished this series of Frozen, or this is our last message in the series of Frozen, and we're learning that we got to let these things go. There's things in our life that's holding us back, whether it's our past, whether it's we've made some foolish choices, foolish decisions, whatever it is. There's things that are holding us back, and we've got to learn it, let it go. And we've got to learn to press into, to go forward into what God wants us to become. And I just want to remind you that God sees the big picture. I had a very wise friend tell me this years ago when we were in the very early process of planting a church. And she said, because I would say different things, and she'd say, let me remind you, God sees the big picture. How many of y'all have ever done a 1,000-piece puzzle before? And the box looks great on the outside, right? And you dump that thing, and there's just pieces everywhere, all over the place, and they don't go together, and they don't make sense. What I'm telling you, God already sees the picture. He knows where each puzzle piece goes. And we, on the other hand, we only see but that little place where we are right now. We don't have that ability to look way ahead. Now, we can chase things down, but God has the ability to see everything. And for some of us, He is leading us and guiding us because He sees the big picture. He sees that if you continue to do this, this is not where you want to be. Sometimes we're blinded, right? So if we continue in this direction with this habit, then we're going to be somewhere that we don't want to be. So what I want to do as we kind of finish today, I want to end a story. I want to end the message with another story. We've talked about the three things, super simple. Three things we got to do. We got to define it, we got to chase it down, and we got to defeat it. But there's a story that I want to talk about, and it's another Old Testament story. I told you I love the Old Testament. But it's about Moses. And God called Moses. And by the way, we've taught on this before. Moses was a very ordinary man. Very ordinary. When God called him with this big calling on his life, Moses was like, you want me to do this? I stutter. I can't even do this. I can't even speak. So he is somebody that we can relate to, right? But God gave him this huge task, I guess you would say. And it was because the children of Israel, the Israelites, who we call God's children, were over here in Egypt, which represented slavery, which represented sin. This is where they were. This is where God wanted to take them, what we call the promised land. It wasn't that far away. In fact, it's just a few miles away, I think, if you study a little bit more. But it wasn't a huge deal. But what happened was Moses got them out of slavery, and they just hung out in the wilderness, in the mountain country. They just hung out here, not for one day, not even for 1 year. 40 years. 40 years they hung out in a place, and God's promise was just right around the corner, basically. Why did they stay there? They stayed there, they bickered, they complained. Well, at least back in Egypt, I had food to eat. There's lots of stuff going on. They worshiped other gods. And the only thing they had to do was just go a little a little bit farther to get to the promised land. So they hung out there for 40 years, wandering round and round and round. And in Deuteronomy 1:6, God said, you have stayed there long enough. You've stayed there long enough at this mountain. Break camp and advance. He was saying, stop wondering, stop doubting me, and advance. Go to where I'm telling you I need to go. Verse 8, he says, see, I have given you this land. Go in and take possession of the land. A few verses later, see, the Lord your God has given you the land. Go up and take possession, as the Lord your God fathers told you. He said, do not be discouraged. I'm going to be with you. But you got to move. You got to move. You got to trust me on this. See what God was doing? Even though the promised land was just a few miles away or just a little ways away, they couldn't see it with their physical eyes, right? God was asking them to see the victory. We just sang it this morning. God was asking them to see the victory. He's saying, with your spiritual eyes, I want you to see the goodness that I have for you. I want you to see what's right around the corner, but you got to trust me. You got to trust me. You got to put it in my hands to know that with my power, I can do this with you. And they still did it even after all of that. Kind of made God mad. And in Deuteronomy 2, it says this, then the Lord said to me, and this is Moses talking, you've been traveling around this mountain country long enough. You've been traveling, you've been wandering too long. You've been doubting me too long. He said, now turn northward. He said, it's time to change directions. He said, stop circling that mountain and head north. Stop wondering if you can do this on your own, because you can't do this on your own. If you could do it on your own, that one thing, then you would have done it years ago, right? That would have been your New Year's resolution. It wouldn't be it again this year. God is saying, stop doubting that I can do this. Stop telling me that questioning, can I help you? Of course he can help you. In fact, he will fight our battles for us. It's not going to be easy. But he promises to never leave us. So this morning, let me ask you, just like Moses, what is your mountain? What is your habit? What is the thing that you are consistently doing that you need to get rid of? You need to stop staying in the same place month, week after week, month after month, year after year, and you're not getting anywhere with it. What is your mountain? So, sometimes God speaks to us. He speaks to us. And he tells us and he warns us. And we got to act on it, guys. What does this mean to me? What does this mean to me? It means to me that God is saying, stop, number one, trying to do everything on your own. Give it to me. That thing that you wrote down, God is saying, give it to me. Let me help you with it. It's taking you in a direction that you don't want to go. Trust me with it. He's asking us this morning to see the victory, to see with our spiritual eyes what he can do. And the very thing that perhaps you wrote down, the very thing that is hindering you now, that's keeping you frozen in your spiritual walk, could be the very thing that he uses to help somebody else. Your mess could be his message. That's good stuff. So I told the first service, I said, I'm not exactly sure. I've really prayed about how to end this because it's kind of an odd thing. But I just really want to make a declaration this morning. So what I want you to do, I want you to stand. I want you to stand. You've been sitting a while. And if you would like to make a declaration this morning to say, God, I see the victory. I don't see it with my physical eyes. I don't know how I can get from here to there. I've tried multiple times. I've failed. I'm tired of failing. But if you declare spiritually, God, with your help, I can do this. If you would like to make that declaration and you, with your spiritual eyes, would like to see a victory in this area, I want to ask you to come forward. Come forward and join me because I'm joining myself up here to know that things in the past I've tried to do on my own. And I failed. And I got to get God to help me. He wants what's best for us. And so, honey, I'm going to ask you if you will pray for us all as we seek God on this journey.
Keep on coming if you need to. If God's tugging at your heart. And even if you don't, what are you going to do about it? Talk is cheap, right? Talk is cheap. I do this, I'm going to do it. If I was going to do it, I'd already done it, right? Why do I need to stop? Where do I need to start? Or where do I need to stop? Samson walking 50,000 steps in a room. Blows my mind, but yet I think I've done the same thing. So the challenge is I'm not going to take another step in that direction. Take it in a different direction. I'm going to turn northward. Right? You've been traveling this mountain long enough. 40% of what we do, guys, is habit, good and bad. Which means I'm just doing it because I've been doing it. But the Holy Spirit tugged at your heart today and said, stop it. Stop taking another step in that direction. Does that mean I'm never going to take a step? Well, it could be. With God's help. But when I do, man, I am not going to beat myself up. The Holy Spirit's going to prompt me to say, I need to do that. I need to do that. I love you too much to see you take that step. I love you too much to see you stay the same. I want to see you move forward in the right direction. Becoming more and more like me. Becoming who I want you to become. This is what we got to do. What's my next step? Not 20 steps, God. This is what makes it so difficult. I think I'm sitting here thinking I got all this stuff I need to fix. Number one, I can't fix it. I need God's help. I always think I need to do. We're saying one step in the right direction, and one step away from the wrong direction. One habit. What can I do? Focus on that one, not the 25 things you got to do. What one thing can I do? And over time, what are you going to see? That collection of good habits, good steps. You're going to start seeing who you want to be, who God wants you to be. Start moving in the right direction. Starts right now. Not when I think about it, not next week, or I'll get to it when I feel like it. Starts right now, in this moment. God can do a miracle in this moment. Change us in this moment. I thank you for your word, God. I thank you for teaching us. One small habit, one small act of obedience, one small step in the right direction. Amazing things can happen. God, I pray as you've challenged us, as you've tugged at our hearts today, God, that we're going to do something about it. For some people today, that big step, that one step, surrendering my life to you. It's completely giving my life to you. Stop trying to control everything. Stop trying to be in charge. But start looking to you. Stop seeing my situation and circumstance as it is. Start seeing the bigger picture. All 1,000 pieces put together, not just that one piece that looks like a blur. Start seeing things the way you want me to see them. And even though things may not be the way I want them to be right now, they can change. Not going to change if I don't take a step in the right direction. God, help me to do that. God, help me in my family. God, help me in my finances. God, help me in my choices. God, help me in every decision of my life. And I'll choose you. And I'll trust in you. And I'll hope in you. God, challenge us with that. Encourage us with that. It's not hopeless. It's not a dead end. It is wide open what you can do in us and through us. For those who will trust, who will believe, who will take steps in the direction that you're leading us. God, help us to do that. And when we move in the wrong way, check us and slap us in our face. As somebody said to me last week, he slaps me in my face. God, check us and help us to get back on track. We love you. Thank you for loving us. Loving us beyond our imagination. So much that you want us to do the right thing. So help us to go put it into practice now, we pray. In Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. You guys can go back to your seat. Miss Carrie's coming.
So I told first service this morning if I had a tagline, and it will be my tagline, Lisa Turkis's line, define it, chase it down. But I'm going to add a word in there, and it's a word that God has been showing me for, I know, a month and a half, almost 2 months now, consistency. Consistently chase it down. I challenge you to do that and defeat it. We can chase it down and defeat it and define it. And that's all backwards, I know that. But we can do all of those with the help of Jesus Christ. He will lead us. And I want to share this because I think it's important. And I share this with first service too. Our pastors don't get up here and just share a whole bunch of stuff with us that they're not applying in their daily life. And that they're not encouraging us as a staff to be better, to push the barrel down a little bit further, to follow Jesus a little bit harder. And I thank you for that. because they want to get us where we need to be, where Christ wants us to be, where he can use us as a body to make a big difference. I just felt it was important to share that. I want you guys to know that I see it firsthand. They're applying these things with our staff and in their own lives. Thank you. You all got a Get Connected sheet this morning, and I wanted to let you know there's a lot of things on here on this Save the Date, but one of the most important things that you're going to hear me talk about is baptism, February 23rd. If you are ready to take that next step and get baptized, please see Pastor Andy and Pastor Terry. This is an important step. It's nothing scary. It's just a time for you to say, hey, I'm on this journey, and everything that was before this journey, Jesus is washing away. And it's a public proclamation of saying, I am on my journey with him, and all this stuff is behind me. So I challenge you to get with our pastors and let them know that you want to make that public declaration. That's really, really important for you to do. And I also want to remind you that of our 21-day fast that we're currently on, it ends February 2nd. Maybe you've fallen off. Don't let Satan discourage you. Get back on and finish strong. And the God's guarantee, if you took a part of that, if you said, hey, I wanted to be a part of that, we're proud of you. Share with Pastor Andy and Pastor Terry what God is doing in your life, because when we take God up on his challenge, he always blesses us. And we want to hear those things. That's right, Johnny. It's worth celebrating. God never, ever, ever takes for granted what we do when we're doing it to honor him. The ushers are going to come and serve you. Thank you for giving, guys. Hey guys, I just want to give them one more reminder. Small groups have started, but if you've not gotten connected, it's still early in the game. There's plenty of opportunity for you to get connected. Mr. Jimmy Lewis is in the Connection Center. Please go back there. He can share with you about the groups. He can help you get signed up to one and have a leader contact you. If you're new to the journey, or maybe you've been here a couple weeks and you've never had the opportunity to meet Pastor Andy and Pastor Terry, please stop by the back and see them. They want to get to know you, and I'll be up front if you need prayer. Thank you, guys. God bless you.